We're back in the Apex for Manel Kape versus Kyoji Horiguchi this week. I'm going to go through the entire card, give you guys the notes and style of every single fighter on the card, as well as my best bets and prediction for every single fight. If you guys want the full betting recap, go ahead and fast forward to this part of the video. Let's get into it. We'll kick it off with Shane Collins versus Otari Tanzalovi, two guys making their UFC debut. Shane Collins, he's a 26-year-old 7-0 professional fighter. He comes from A1 Combat, which is Uriah Faber's league. He had 11 amateur fights before this as well as 2 kickboxing fights too, so he's not super inexperienced as his pro record may suggest. 3 of his last 4 wins do come by round 1 KO as well. His style, he stands a bit flat-footed, but he's always very centered and accurate, carries some pretty nasty KO power as well. He wants to pressure forward in exchange from the pocket and kind of win there. He has good size for the division as well, despite not really using it. He's 5'10 featherweight. His opponent, Otari Tanzalovi, he went 9-0 on the regional scene, gets a shot on the Dana White Contender Series, loses via split decision, then goes back on the regional scene, gets a win. Now he's making his UFC debut. His style, he's a lengthy, dynamic striker with a plethora of lethal kicks. He's accurate, precise, and quick, as well as having some pretty strong takedown defense. He's a Georgian. He knows how to grapple. My prediction for the fight, I think Otari Tanzalovi will take this one by decision. Now, this is a weird one because he is the underdog in this fight, and I guess I can see why. Shane Collins definitely holds the power advantage, but in terms of the speed advantage and just who's more dynamic of a fighter, I think Otari Tanzalovi probably takes that. He's going to pose threats that I don't think Shane Collins has necessarily had to deal with yet. I think Shane Collins will probably have to muddy up this one in order to get it done and win. I just don't know if he's going to be able to walk forward and enter range the way that he's going to want to against Otari Tanzalovi. So I think Collins KO at plus 245 is about the only way that Collins will win. I think over the course of 15 minutes, Tanzalovi will fight a cleaner fight. So if it goes to a decision, he will win. However, KO-wise, I would favor Shane Collins because of that finishing threat. Next up, an absolute barn burner, Karol Rosa versus Luana Santos. Karol Rosa, she signed to the UFC in 2019 after an 11-3 run on the regional scene. She has a win over Jocelyn Edwards in the UFC, and that's kind of her best win by far. But in her last 8, she's 4-4 with 0 finishes in her entire UFC career as well. She looked her best in her most recent fight, though, against Nora Cornoli. She was just killing it in that fight, and it might have just been a good matchup, but she definitely looked her best. Her style, she's a very above-average women's MMA fighter. Nice counter-striking, kind of sloppy striker, but just 0 finishing power in general. Solid grappling as well, but we will see her get out grappled by elite level grapplers. Eileen Perez just kind of did whatever she wanted with Karol Rosa. Her opponent, Luana Santos, she signed to the UFC back in 2023 after a couple wins in the LFA. 5-1 in the UFC. So far, her only loss is to Casey O'Neill, which no shame in that. She's a great fighter. 3 out of her 5 wins in the UFC come by finish, and this is only her second fight moving up from flyweight as well. So she is a former flyweight. However, she does hold the size advantage, I believe, in this fight. Her style, she's a very strong judo grappler. She's always searching for the submission. Her stand-ups are very basic, but I think has gotten gradually better in every single fight that she's had in the UFC so far. My prediction for the fight, I think Luana Santos will win this one via round 3 submission. Now, obviously, a decision or over 2.5 rounds is a great bet, but the value just isn't really there. I think Santos via submission is plus 700 is great value just because we've seen her finish plenty of women in the UFC so far. And Karol Rosa, yes, she's a good grappler, and she also doesn't get finished. So, I guess we'll see, but I do believe in the judo of Luana Santos. I think she's actually a really solid fighter, and her money line is also at plus 100. So this is the second underdog in a row to kick off the card, but yeah. Rosa holds the striking advantage, but barely. She's, like I said, she's still sloppy. I'm going to always favor the person with finishing ability, especially in a women's MMA fight. So give me Luana Santos via round 3 submission in this one. Next up, we got Edmen Shahbazyan versus Levon Chokili. Edmen Shahbazyan, he went 7-1 on the regional scene, loses on the Dana White Contender Series, goes back to the regional scene, 5-2 run. Now he's making his UFC debut. He's also the younger brother of Edmen Shahbazyan, who we just saw lose to Brandon Allen not that long ago. Leon Shahbazyan's style, he either finds a takedown and locks in a submission, or he gets brutally slimed out. There is literally 0 in between. 11 of his 12 wins come by submission, and all 4 of his losses come by knockout. He has a very strong submission game, obviously, a nice guillotine, but just has 0 chin. That's kind of who he is. Just there's nothing else to go on. Like I said, he's had 16 fights, and they've all ended in one of 2 outcomes. His opponent, Levon Chokili, Went 8-0 on the Georgian regional scene, all round 1 KO finishes. Goes to Bellator where he kind of has a lackluster run. He only went 4-3, but now he's making his UFC debut. His style, he's a scrappy brute, throws some wild but dangerous strikes, athletic kickboxing as well, and he's Georgian, so the hip strength is obviously there. My prediction for this fight, I do think Levon Chokoli will win this one via round 1 KO. I think the fight will still go one of two ways. Chokoli will either win by KO or Shabazian will win by submission. I don't think there's any in between here. I just think Chokoli is not this super dangerous guy, but has enough to finish Leon Shabazian. Leon Shabazian's getting finished by Phil Rowe. I mean, random regional scene guys are KOing him. So I think Chokoli will probably get it done. But if you really want the value, it's Chokoli KO and Shabazian submission. Both of those are perfectly fine bets. And the fight to go under 1.5 rounds because Shabazian, if he does get the submission, it's usually early. So I like this fight to go under 1.5 rounds as well. Next up, we got Gaston Bolaños versus Michael Aswell. Gaston Bolaños, he joins Bellator, went 6-3 before signing with UFC in 2023. So far, he's been really win-loss. 2-2 with 0 finishes and getting finished twice in both of his losses. He's a solid Muay Thai striker with 0 resistance to grappling. Leg kicks and high kicks are definitely his best weapon. That's where he's going to win and set up the rest of his offense. His opponent, Michael Aswell Jr., he went 9-1 in Fury FC, then loses on the Contender Series to Bogdan Grad, goes back to Fury, gets a win, but now he's back in the UFC, or now he's in the UFC. Faced Luke Riley in London in his most recent fight as the co-main event earlier this year. Had a decisive loss, but a scrappy loss. It wasn't competitive or close. I guess it wasn't close, but it was competitive. He's now 1-2 in the UFC. His only win comes via round 1 KO. His style, he's a solid, clean-ish boxer with good combos and what I thought was decent KO power, but then looked pretty lackluster against Luke Riley. But then again, it is Luke Riley, who I think is a really good prospect. He has a wrestling background, never looks to use it, should probably look to use it in this fight. And he's scrappy and durable. He ate some nasty shots from Luke Riley. My prediction for the fight, I do think Michael Aswell Jr. will win this one via decision. We'll see. Michael Aswell Jr. has that grappling base that he can go to, and I think if he does choose to implement it, he'll be pretty successful against Gaston Bolaños. But even if the fight does stay standing, I still think Michael Aswell is a better fighter. Yes, Bolaños is a more dynamic striker, but I think Michael Aswell Jr. is cleaner and will find more shots if the fight does stay standing. But I think Aswell, as long as he poses that grappling threat, he'll be just fine. I think Aswell money line at minus 425 makes plenty of sense. The Aswell over on takedowns as well. And then I do think this fight will probably go the distance at minus 130. Neither of these guys are like super big finishers. I guess if Aswell lands a pretty clean shot, he has shown that he does have round 1 KO power before. But I like this fight to go the distance. So I got Michael Aswell Jr. getting this one done by decision. Next up, we got Mitch Raposo versus Alan Nascimento. Mitch Raposo, he had a 5-0 start on the regional scene, goes on tough and loses immediately, then becomes champ in like 2 other promotions, signs with the UFC, but now he's 1-2 within the UFC. His style, clearly improving his stand-up skill, looks sloppy often, but he's clearly more comfortable on the mat where he can use his strength. He's a pretty strong and well-built flyweight. His opponent, Alan Nascimento, he trains out of Chute Box. He had a really good regional scene showing, then loses on the Contender Series, signs with the UFC in 2021, is on a 4-fight win streak right now after losing his UFC debut. His style, he's a very crafty BJJ grappler, really good submission game. He just gets hit a lot on the feet, has some absolutely terrible defensive head movement, doesn't keep his hands up, seems to have a decent chin because some of these shots he's eating are pretty nasty and he just kind of walks through them. My prediction for the fight, I went back and forth on this one. I actually changed my pick, or I made my prediction, changed my pick back, and then changed my pick again. This is super close in my opinion, but I am going to go with Mitch Raposo via round 2 KO. I'm really 50-50 on this. I don't think that there is anything like money line worth betting on because it's so close. I think a Raposo KO, though, at plus 850 does make decent sense. He's kind of had a emphasis on striking recently. He's not like I said, he's getting better. Alan Nascimento just gets hit so much. And if Nascimento is going to try and implement grappling to try and find that submission, I think Mitch Raposo's wrestling background will kind of serve as a decent anti-grappling base if Mitch Raposo wants to keep this on the feet. I think it's just a matter of if he'll want to do that. If the fight goes to the mat, I've got Alan Nascimento pulling out a submission because he's so crafty. But we'll see. Alan Nascimento is just kind of a punching bag on the feet. But I think this fight not to go the distance at minus 140 is a pretty good bet. And Raposo by KO. I know he's not a striker, but in this fight, it just kind of makes sense to me. So I think if Alan Nascimento can force grappling, or if Mitch Raposo allows grappling, it'll go on Alan Nascimento's way. But stand up, I think I've got Mitch Raposo. UFC kind of knew what they were doing here, sneaking a little women's MMA banger in the Apex for us. Bia Mesquita versus Melissa Mullins. Bia Mesquita, she went 5-0 on the regional scene, came a champ in LFA, skips the contender series, just goes straight to the UFC, and then debuts with a performance of the night performance. Also gets another finish back in March on the Kevin Vallejos card, so she's 2-0 in the UFC so far. She's the best prospect in 135 in women's MMA, but maybe just in all of women's MMA. I mean, she is killing it right now. Her style, she's not very tall for the division, has a compact and strong build. It allows her to win with relentless grappling. However, when she gets the fight to the ground, she is not control grappling at all. She's constantly looking for submission, but what she does really well is land nasty ground and pound. She can achieve mount with such ease. It's kind of nuts. And she has the power to do so as a woman. I mean, look at her. She's got some power. So the ground and pound and the submission hunting is where Bia Mesquita tries to win, but she's a relentless grappler, and her raw strength just kind of allows her to do that. Her opponent, Melissa Mullins, she went 5-0 on the regional scene, signs the UFC in 2024, 2-2 in the UFC so far, had problems missing weight in the past. She made weight for this fight perfectly fine, but I think she's missed weight 3 of 4 times in the UFC. Her style, she's a sloppy fighter with a lot of dog in her. Not overly skilled anywhere, but that's just kind of who she is. Just scrappy, got a lot of dog. She's fun to watch too, I guess, but in terms of skill wise, there's nothing overly outstanding to break down. My prediction for the fight, I do think Bia Mesquita will win via round 1 TKO. I think she'll take Melissa Mullins down, ground and pound, and probably in this fight, either within the first round or early second round. I think Bia Mesquita in round 1 via finish is at plus 200 makes sense. And I think Bia Mesquita to win by finish at minus 180 makes plenty of sense. There's no reason for me to believe that she won't finish this fight. I think she runs through Melissa Mullins. Bia Mesquita is a monster. It should be a pretty good, exciting fight. Bia Mesquita is, like I said, maybe the best prospect in all of women's MMA. So eyeballs will definitely be on this one, but I got her getting it done via round 1 TKO. Next up, we got Andre Lima versus Kevin Borjas. Andre Lima, he went 6-0 on the regional scene before getting a win on a contender series and a contract. 4-0 in the UFC up to this point, but he has not fought in 15 months. I believe he had an injury, and that's what's kind of kept him out, but he's back now. His style, he's a defensively sound boxer with pretty good power. Looks to march forward with his high guard and just kind of land the bigger blows out of the exchanges. Pretty decent accuracy as well. Likes to over-rotate, but in a good way. His opponent, Kevin Borjas, he became champion on the regional scene, got a win on the contender series. He's 1-4 since joining the UFC. He's faced some tough comp. I'm pretty sure he lost to Joshua Van. He just most recently fought Imanol Rodriguez, one of my favorite flyweight prospects, got knocked out there in Mexico. His style, he's a low output boxer that wants to strike at range and use his length to create problems for his opponent. He's got pretty solid striking defense and head movement, but has been caught a couple times. It's weird because his striking defense and head movement is good until it isn't. He's also got decent takedown defense as well. My prediction for the fight, I think Andre Lima will win. It's just, I think he'll get it done via decision. I think the graphic's wrong. It says Nascimento via round 2 sub. That is incorrect. I think Andre Lima will win this one by decision. Borjas' length can provide problems for pretty much anybody in the entire division. However, Lima by KO decision at minus 250 makes plenty of sense. He's obviously not going to find a submission, I don't think. And the Lima over on significant strikes, just because Borjas does get hit a pretty decent amount, but not really a big surprise. This one, Andre Lima is a pretty big favorite, and Kevin Borjas is probably on his way out of the UFC. So I got Andre Lima getting this one done. This is another one that's actually pretty entertaining. Vinicius Oliveira versus Andre Fili. Vinicius Oliveira, he's an 18-3 fighter from the regional scene, came into the UFC from the Dana White Contender Series after a round 1 KO, rolled to a 4-0 start in the UFC, but then in his most recent fight against Mario Bautista, got beat in pretty dominant fashion, got finished, I believe, via submission in round 2. However, this is his first fight moving up to featherweight. He was a huge bantamweight before. He's decided to make the move up to featherweight, and we'll see how it goes. This is going to be his first one in his entire career. His style, Very wild and unorthodox striker, fights with his hands down completely at his side. His heart and cardio looked really questionable, honestly, pretty awful in his last fight. However, we'll see what the new weight looks like on him. I think he'll probably look pretty rejuvenated, but I guess we'll get to that in the prediction. His opponent, Andre Fili, joined the UFC all the way back in 2014. He's 13-12 so far. He's only ever beat pretty mid to low level guys. I guess he has a few decent wins up to this point in his career, but when he faces anyone of pretty moderate skill, he almost always loses. Even when he loses, though, he does make it tricky for his opponents. He's never an easy out. He always poses problems to whoever he's fighting, especially strikers. And he didn't look bad in his most recent fight against Jose Miguel Delgado. It was a pretty close fight. Like I said, he's always in competitive fights. I don't think anybody's really just, mopping the floor with Andre Fili. His style, he's a bit of a crafty striker, has strong overall stand-up, struggles to win with emphasis, though, because even when he is winning, they're just really close. He has a good height and length for the division as well. That poses problems, too. My prediction for the fight, though, I do think Vinicius Oliveira will win this one via round 2 KO. This is just my personal thoughts on this. I think Vinicius Oliveira is going to I think the new weight is going to look great on him. I think he's going to feel rejuvenated. I think he's going to feel great. I think the power is actually going to be even better when you don't have to cut that much weight. Sometimes you're not as weight trained. So I actually think Vinicius Oliveira will look great. I think he'll find his stride in this weight class. However, he does get hit a lot, and we've only seen him getting hit by bantamweight. So is this featherweight power? Andre Fili's not really a power guy, but if he eats a shot from Andre Fili, is that featherweight to bantamweight power difference going to make a difference? I guess we'll see. But money betting wise, I like Oliveira's money line at -290. Fili KO is a decent high value straight at +800. There's tons of value on this card. We'll get to that later. And then Fili over on strikes just because of Vinicius does get hit quite a bit. But yeah, I like Oliveira in this one. I've got pretty high confidence in this one as well. So give me Oliveira by round 2 KO in this one. Up, we got Melsek Baghdasaryan versus Murtazali Magomedov. Come on, we do this. Melsek Baghdasaryan, he loses his first pro fight and then he rattled off 7 straight, including a win on the Dana White Contender Series. He's 1-2 in his last 3, getting finished in both of his losses. He's taken over 15 months off, though, since his last fight against Gene Silva. And if he looks familiar, it's because he is the guy that got clipped by Gene Silva when they were like slapping each other, and then Gene Silva was like clapping and hyping up the crowd, and then he knocked him out like 20 seconds later. That's what this guy kind of looks familiar from, but don't want to kind of bash this guy on his introduction, but it was Gene Silva, so what can he do? His style, he's a very solid kickboxer with good footwork and athleticism. Likes to reach his lead hand out and kind of set up his attacks from that. It's pretty unique. He has gotten caught before in the past, obviously, doing that, but he's at his best when he's ripping these grueling body kicks. He throws them with such speed, and he's got a really good build for the division as well. He's pretty strong and powerful. His opponent, Magomedov, he's 10-0. He's a 10-0 fighter from the regional scene, coming off a round 1 KO win on the Dana White Contender Series, making his UFC debut today. His style, he has a very high grappling IQ, good hip strength, looks to stand and exchange, though, primarily. He will mix in takedowns every now and then. Cardio has looked very questionable. He has not seen a round 3 in 4 years. And even in the round 3s, I don't think he's ever seen a decision either. So he has a 100% finishing rate in all of his wins. His power, though, doesn't really come from raw strength. It kind of comes from that length and accuracy combo that he's got going on. My prediction for the fight, I think Melsek Baghdasaryan will get this one done by round 3 KO. This is another underdog pick, and I'm not quite sure why I'm favoring some of these underdogs. I try not to look at the odds going in, and this is a fight where I didn't see the odds. Watched both fighters and thought Melsek was just a better fighter. I think he's got a speed advantage. I think he's more technically sound. He also has power of his own. However, I think Magomedov clearly has a power advantage. I think I just can't get past the fact Melsek has looked like he's got better cardio. I mean, it's just more that he's faced better guys. And, we've seen some of these guys from the Contender Series come in undefeated, and they just haven't fought anybody of a UFC level fighter yet. And I think Melsek Baghdasaryan actually isn't a bad fighter. Losing to Gene Silva and getting knocked out, landing shots against Gene Silva, like, It's not something to be ashamed of. So I think Melsik Baghdasaryan will get this one done at plus 275. That's really good value. And then if you want to go the other way, because I think if Magomedov wins, it'll be via KO. Magomedov KO under 2.5 rounds at plus 260. That makes too much sense. So I like both of those combos. Either way, I think either of those will hit. So good value betting wise from either one, but I got the underdog in this one, getting it done via round 3 KO. A little mini banger between two guys that are looking to get back on track. Haider Emil versus Christian Rodriguez. Haider Emil, he was at one point a super hyped up 11-0 prospect, but he's lost his last two, kind of derailing a lot of his hype. Gets knee in the face in the first round KO against Jose Miguel Delgado on the International Fight Week card last year, and then gets wrestle fucked pretty bad in his last fight on the Bonfim card in December. So like I said, he's looking to get back on track with a win, kind of restore a little bit of his hype. His style, he just marches forward into the fire and pushes an incredible pace. Terrible striking defense. He'll get hit a ton, but has a chin from hell. I mean, some of these shots that he's eaten, I have no idea how he just eats them and continues staying upright. He's a super entertaining guy. He'll leave himself susceptible to takedowns and struggles against even just decent grappling. He got wrestle fucked really badly in his last fight. Just didn't really have an answer. And because his game is so predicated on forward movement, it doesn't really bode well for him when somebody is decent at grappling. His opponent, Christian Rodriguez, came in the UFC in 2022 after a 7-0 run on the regional scene. 5-4 in the UFC. However, he's not doing too hot. He's only won one of his last 4 fights. His style, he's a high volume but inaccurate striker that does his best work from the pocket. He will leave himself open to counter strikes, though. I think that's definitely his biggest weakness and where we see him lose a lot of his fights. My prediction for the fight, I think you guys can kind of get that this one's going to be a fire fight. Two guys that like to stand and exchange. Haider Emil super forward. I am going to rock with Haider Emil, though, getting this one done by round 2 KO. I love the chin of Haider Emil. I love the pressure and the volume even more. I mean, Christian Rodriguez is a volume guy, but Haider Emil is like a real volume guy. He's the underdog too at plus 165. I think the fight not to go the distance at plus 105 is pretty decent. Like I said, this should be a banger. These guys are coming to throw down. They both need to get back on track. I think they're going to leave it all out there. I just like the volume and chin scrappiness of Haider Emil. I have picked him in both of his last fights, and he has lost both of them. So picking him here will almost ensure that he loses. However, I'm still going to pick him because I'm a Haider Emil guy. I don't know. I like his style. I think he's fun. And I do think he's the better fighter in this fight. So give me Haider Emil via round 2 KO. Co-main event, Ion Cutelaba versus Navajo Sterling. Cutelaba, he's been in the UFC for a hot minute. He's got 20 fights. He's 9-10-1. Just when you think he's trash and about to get cut, he'll go out there and get a fluke win. He's beaten Khalil Roundtree, finished Khalil Roundtree actually in round 1. Recently just beat Omar Sy via submission. He's on a decent run lately, though, winning 3 of his last 4. So, maybe he's catching a bit of a second wind, but his style, he's got very slick submission ability. He's able to pounce, though, when the opportunities arrive. He does have a pretty decent fight IQ. He has a good finishing sense and a sense for when he can attack. Outside of that, though, I think his game is pretty average. It doesn't really shine anywhere. Pretty average striker, and it's not like he's forcing these grappling exchanges. He just kind of finds himself into them. It's very weird. He's got a very unique style to break down. I wouldn't say he's a very unique fighter, but in terms of like who he is, it's kind of tough to articulate. His opponent, Navajo Sterling, young, undefeated, training out of City Kickboxing, got an impressive KO win on the Contender Series. Finally gets a finish within the UFC after getting fed cans. Gets a finish on the KO, or gets a finish on the card in Seattle earlier this year. Still working his way up and is fairly untested. This is definitely his biggest test so far. And is it just me, or does this fellow look a little bit like Tom Blythe? Anyways, his style comes from a kickboxing and Muay Thai background. Still rounding out his game. He gets hit a decent amount, but also dishes out pretty good punishment. Although not really being a KO power puncher. He is just really well sized for the division, though. I think he's 6'4". Fights a little bit like think about Izzy currently. He kind of fights like the light heavyweight version of Izzy. I don't want to make a backhanded, comparison in any sort of way, but just like that's kind of how I view him. However, my prediction for the fight, I think Navarro Sterling will win this one by decision. Sterling money line at minus 310, plenty of sense. And a Kudalaba sub at plus 1100, you can never count this out. Navarro Sterling doesn't have any sort of grappling base. He's obviously worked his takedown defense and it's looked great in the past, but if Kudalaba wants to force grappling, who's to say he might not land a takedown and then search for a submission and get it? So at plus 1100, I don't think you can ever count that out. And it's not that bad of value, but I do have pretty high confidence in Navarro Sterling in this one. He's still young, he's still growing, and he's at a good gym in City Kickboxing. I cannot stress enough how important that is for some of these young, undefeated fighters. Give me Navarro Sterling via decision in this one at minus 310. It just makes too much sense. Our main event, Manel Kape versus Kyoji Horiguchi. This is a kind of a crime that this is in the Apex. I really can't believe that we're having this in the Apex. I think this is Kyoji Horiguchi's second time, too. Not crazy about this one being in the Apex. However, it is a rematch of an old RIZIN fight that happened a while ago. It was a banger when it happened then. Both of these guys are pretty big stars overseas in Japan. To get into the card, Manel Kape, he comes into the UFC after becoming a champion in RIZIN, so he won the belt, immediately signed with the UFC. 7-3 in the UFC so far, coming off a pretty impressive round 1 KO win against Royval. Looked really nasty in that one and kind of made it look easy. Trains out of Extreme Couture. His style, he's fairly conventional striker, but carries unheard of power for flyweight. He's got 3 straight KOs. Like I said, what he did to Brandon Royval was nasty. I mean, that was a violation. He struggled with elite level grappling, though. Lost to Pantoja, lost via submission the first time that he fought Kyoji Horiguchi over in RIZIN. So there is that kind of weakness to his game. His opponent, Kyoji Horiguchi, the Gooch. I love Kyoji Horiguchi. The Karate Kid. You can call him the Gooch, you can call him the Karate Kid. Either one works. He was in the UFC for a minute, left and went to RIZIN, where he beat Manel Kape and also beat Kaya Sakura. Lost Kaya Sakura, though, as well. But now he's back in the UFC. He's 2-0 in his second stint so far. He's on a 7-fight unbeaten streak, though, dating back to 2022. Had multiple championship wins and defenses over in RIZIN. He's been one of the best flyweights in the world, and I'm shocked that he has not been given a title shot yet. I thought if they signed Kyoji Horiguchi back, that they just throw him against Pantoja when he was champ, but they haven't. They've kind of made him work for it, and so far he's made easy work of whoever he's fought. Beat the shit out of Tiger Ulanbekov, and most recently is coming off of a win against Amir Albazi, where it was never close. He also beat the shit out of Amir Albazi. His style, like I said, he's the Karate Kid, so light and agile. He's 5'4", so he was undersized, but he's just built so well, and he just kind of floats in and out. He's so quick and agile. He's a full and complete fighter, though. He has takedown defense. He can implement offensive grappling, has plenty of submission wins throughout his career. He's also got championship experience and cardio, something that I think he might hold the advantage over Manel Kape here as well. My prediction for the fight, I've got the Gooch getting this one done by decision. Now, method-wise, I think this is tough to predict. I can see it really going a multitude of different ways, but I was so surprised when Kyoji Horiguchi was the underdog in this. I love Kyoji Horiguchi. Yes, I get Manel Kape is super dangerous, but I think Kyoji Horiguchi is dangerous too. But more importantly, he's smarter. And think about Manel Kape as this kind of brute. Kyoji Horiguchi is kind of that agile guy that I think can kind of evade, survive, implement grappling maybe if he wants, mix it up. I just think Kyoji Horiguchi is great. If he gets a title shot, whether it's against Pantoja or Van, I think I might pick Kyoji Horiguchi to win that fight as well. Yes, Kape can catch him, and Kyoji Horiguchi has been caught before, especially against Kaya Sakura. But his other loss against, yes, he has a loss against Patchy Mix, but that was because Patchy Mix was huge and was just weight bullying Kyoji Horiguchi because RIZIN doesn't have a 125 division, so he was forced to fight at 135, where he's obviously way smaller than a lot of these guys. But give me Kyoji Horiguchi underdog money. Kape KO at plus 200, so I think you can take Kyoji Horiguchi money line or Kape KO, because if this thing goes to a decision, I do not think Kape has it in him to win it at all. I think he has to win via KO. And a Gooch sub at plus 650. That's how the first fight went. So if you think that there might be a repeat, plus 650 don't look too bad. So give me Kyoji Horiguchi in this one, though. I'm super confident in this, too. I couldn't believe he was the underdog. I like this one. Should be a pretty fire main event. Upset it's in the Apex, but not upset that it's happening. Should be a banger. But I'm taking the Gooch, the Karate Kid. To recap everything, there's a lot of value on this card. I think maybe I'm just don't know anything about MMA and I could be wrong about everything. I try and give you guys these breakdowns in a way that frames them as this is how this guy can win and this is how this guy can win. And I want you guys to kind of maybe make your own decision. If you think that a guy's certain grappling threat will overtake, if you favor certain things, I want you guys to make decisions kind of based off of the information that I give you. And then I just kind of give you what I think will happen on top of that. However, I do think there's a lot of value, like I said. Gooch sub, Kape KO, Shabazian sub, Raposo KO, BM Mesquita in round 1, Kutalaba sub, Feely KO, Melsick money line. These are all like crazy good value bets that I'll probably place low amounts on pretty much all of them. But if you just go through individually card by card and look at the betting breakdown, there's a lot more value that I just kind of wasn't really able to sneak in there. These are my favorite high values. However, there's tons of like lower plus value that you can get into and just kind of like double bet some of these fights. I think a lot of these things can just go one of two ways, and even the odds on that are pretty good. Parlay wise, though, what I'm super confident in, not a whole lot, only 4 fights. Didn't do too well in the parlay legs last week. But I like Mesquita via finish at minus 180. She's finished both her fights in the UFC so far. Melissa Mullins has been finished, so I like that. A Navarro Sterling money line. I'm a Sterling fan, but that doesn't really incorporate into the pick. I think he's a better fighter as well. Oliveira money line. That's just a true belief that I have in Oliveira. I think he's going to look great, especially with this new weight. Super confident in that pick. And then Kyoji Horiguchi at plus money. I don't usually put plus money bets in the parlay legs, but I'm just so confident in Kyoji Horiguchi. I don't really know why he's plus money. I just can't. I don't know. I can't wrap my head around it. Maybe on some bets, it's on some apps it's lower. I use Bet365 because that's the official UFC partner. So maybe on some apps it's different value, but I like Kyoji Horiguchi at plus 135. All those parlay legs I'm super confident in. If you put all 4 of those together, you should actually probably get a pretty decent bet. And we'll see how that goes. But this card is going to be a lot of single bets for me, a lot of high value straights. There's a lot of stuff that I really like. And so I'm thinking I'm going to probably place a lot of a higher volume of bets, probably with a lot of lower wagers. The total picks recap from last week didn't do too great. Still 121 and 55, 44 and 30 in numbered events, 67 and 36 in fight night events, and 8 and 6 in main events. Been tons of upsets in main events this year, and I've picked some of them right, but we'll see. I'm hoping for another one. But yeah, usually the Apex is where my picks go to die, but I'm feeling good about this one. I don't know, but maybe I shouldn't be because I'm picking a lot of underdogs, and that's usually not how these things go. But thank you guys so much for watching. These take me a really long time, and so I'm trying to get out other videos as well. But like the graphics, just in general, kind of make they're tough to make, and they can take a while, especially breaking down all these fighters that I have no idea who they are. But I'm having fun doing it. Hopefully you guys are enjoying the videos. Hopefully you guys can take something from this and make a Apex event a little bit more interesting for you. Thank you so much for watching. I will try and get another video. I think I'm going to upload a video about, each weight class. It'll be a bit of a like mini recurring series, but I think I'm going to do heavyweight first. So thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you tomorrow probably for the recap of the entire card. See ya.